Graphic warning, get your kids out the room or stick your headphones in. The story we're going to share today is really traumatic on many different levels. This lady is very brave and recently required and requested and recalled many of her former memories that had been suppressed, and she will explain to you why. Overall, this great lady stands strong and stands brave and has a passion to help others, and just said to me, I want to go back for the children. This is very harrowing, some of what she will say. I send my blessing and my love already to the one, to the only, Holly Baglio. Hello, darling. Welcome to my channel.
Thank you so much, Dani. I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for such a huge opportunity.
Well, my pleasure. It's my duty to help people like you and others in this full disclosure arena, this timeline in 2026 that we're standing firmly on as we take down the system and we bring all of the truth with evidence to the front focus of humanity. Now, you understand yourself to have been recruited against your will into what people know as a secret space program. When did you first realize this had happened to you?
Uh, well, I'm 51 now, but I think at two different points in my life, when I was 6 years old and again around 18 or 19 years old, I had woken up out of the MK Ultra hypnosis, MK Ultra programming. Um, but the people around me did not believe me. They were not equipped or prepared. So I basically just went back to sleep and continued to be active. But when I was 39, turning 40, I just drew a blank. I hate when that happens. But when I was 39, turning 40, I was on 33 prescriptions, fully disabled, dating the wrong person, and just at a bad point in my life. So um, I used my faith to help me get those bad people out and turn my life around slowly. And I used medicinal cannabis to come off my 33 prescriptions and detox. And I did that on my own because I heard it has medicinal properties and it can help you detox. And I did not need a rehab. I just needed to make my decision and then have tools available to me.
That's very
That
strong of you, Holly. Very, very strong. We often hear and see that children, now adults, who have been in these programs against their will, often unfortunately fall into addictions, into trauma bonding with other people who have been through other levels of violence and trauma. And it just keeps going on a horrible roller coaster, sometimes to the end of someone's life. So it definitely fits a pattern. But there are also people, Holly, that weren't in the secret space program, that watch YouTubes and look at conferences and want to be on stages. And it's a way for them to recover. It's a way for them to feel they have value. It's also another level of trauma bonding. And so we have to be very, very clear that not everyone we see or hear has actually been in one of these programs, but an extraordinary amount of humans have. Now, do you remember what your program or any of the programs that you were recruited into were called?
uh, Project IBIS, and I think that in that project, they were programming us to Egyptian principles and the different Egyptian deities. Project Mannequin, which I believe was a genetic experimentation program, but so was Project IBIS because they wanted a certain bloodline. Um,
All right, let's
I
stop
was
there.
going.
Sorry, darling, your audio is rubbish, even though we went over and over technical issues before we
Oh
hit
wow.
record. Yeah. So we're just slow down a bit so we can just land some information. You mentioned Project
Okay.
IBIS. Okay. How old are you? What are you even doing, remembering a program, and what are people doing to you? Who are they and where are you?
Okay, I figured out the audio problem and I deeply apologize,
No, no,
Dani.
no problem. You're sounding perfect now. You're doing great, my love. You're doing great. Project Ibis.
Okay, I had a
How?
Holly moment.
That's all right. I have lots of
All
Danny
right.
moments, darling.
So, well, I was
born into these projects. So for me, it started at the very beginning. I was exposed to not only the mind control, but the human and genetic experimentations. Because to begin with, I have felt like I was a Rothschild experiment project come to real life for a long time because Joseph Mangli used gene splicing to create me, implant me in my mother's womb, and right then and there, the MK Ultra programming and training started because I was injured in the womb while my mother was pregnant, and then when she gave my biological mother. We don't have a relationship, so forgive me how I speak, but I definitely want to reflect that we don't have a relationship. Um, so when my biological mother gave birth to me, I was born breech. I was bent in half and my butt came out first. So when it comes to super soldier, I'm the epitome of it. Being that from start to finish, I I was a genetic experimentation to begin with. So I don't know if I should say the name or not. No, I shouldn't hesitate. So David Rothschild, um, um, he paid Joseph Mangli a lot of money to create me, and he had other things being created too. So when Mangli created me, I had my biological mother and biological father and my dad, biological dad's DNA, as well as Rothschild's DNA and Anunnaki DNA. So Joseph Mangli, the angel of death, he was throwing a bunch of different DNA and things together right from the door with me. So for all my life, I have for the first 37 years of my life, I have two sets of memories. I have my normal life on the surface of the earth where we are here and now, and then a second set, which is very fragmented from the deep underground military bases and above ground government facilities.
Okay.
And so it started with the genetics, and
Can I stop
I
you there a
heard,
moment? Sorry,
yes.
don't forget your thought that you heard, but just for people that may have never heard this, it is so confusing because I know I cover so many people with similar stories to you on my channel, but we still must remember there are new people coming every single day. So you're talking about Mengele. You're talking about Joseph Mengele, the Nazi scientist who came over with Project Paperclip after World War II with many, many, many hundreds, maybe thousands, people say, who were put into, they created NASA, they went to Brazil, Argentina, Portugal, they went everywhere, but they went to America. And they absolutely did
Yeah.
create these programs. They started in Pacific Beach, in San Diego, California. And I met the first woman. Her name is Dr. Juliet Engel, no relationship to Mengele. And she was one of the first children they ever experimented on. So there is a follow through here. Also, the fact that you're saying that there was multiple splicing of genetics. We know this is a fact. We know this is true no matter what mainstream tell us. We just ignore that. It is possible to create a child biologically using different cells and different genomes. It has been done. It is being done. It is said, allegedly, the monstrous Bill Gates and the foul pig Epstein were also doing this at his island. And it's been done all over the world on animals and children for millennia. It's not new. So just to establish, you believe that you have the genes of Anunnaki, which could be reptilian, which could be grey, which could be, I mean, a multitude of things. It could be part human because there are also human elements to the Anunnaki too. So you think that your mum was aware of this? Were your parents in the military as well, or were you just an abused family?
Well, okay. That great question. My mother dropped me on her parents, and she was never around. She showed up when I was about 8 years old when she met my stepfather, and he was a very good man. He was right off the boat with his parents from Poland, so they used to tell me the truth about World War II. Anyway, he was a good man. He had no idea what was going on. My mother, She was not a mother, should not have had kids to begin with,
Hmm.
and she, I feel, was emotionally and mentally abusive to me, to say the least. When she
Understood.
had my sister, I'm sorry, when she had my sister, I was saddled with my sister, and I raised my sister with my stepdad. Um, but my grandparents on my father's side, the Baglios, my grandfather, Peter Baglio, was an administrator to the Veterans Hospital in Brooklyn, and I was told that that side of the family had mafia connections, which is a red flag. But on my mother's side of the family, my grandparents, they did not know. If they knew, they would have done everything in their power they could have to stop it. But my grandfather was in the Navy during World War II on a minesweeper ship as a chef. And he would come home and tell grandma how the Navy would give him and a couple other soldiers LSD and marijuana just to see what it would do. And my grandmother thought he was full of malarkey. She thought he was full of it. But I believe that my grandfather was an unknowing, unwilling candidate in these projects, in MK Ultra projects through the military. I don't think he realized what they were doing. My grandmother, she was, stay-at-home wife, and she was the seamstress too. But my grandparents were great people.
Mm.
They were unaware. And with my mother, my biological mother, dropping me off at their house during the week, picking me up on the weekends. And sometimes then she'd never even bring me to my grandparents. There were a lot of times that I was unattended, but my biological mother never taught me about faith or spiritual warfare to even protect me in the first place. So if
Sadly,
I would tell her,
like a lot of terrible mothers and terrible fathers. So, but you know what? Obviously, from what you're sharing, she did have enough presence of mind to leave you with very good people. So that in itself is a blessing because you hear about so many kids, like you
yes,
said, sometimes you were unattended. Lord knows what happened to these poor kids from every walk of life, from the wealthiest to the poorest in a trailer park. At least you had
yeah,
that kind of foundation.
yeah.
Let's take a step back to the program called Project IBIS. You mentioned that there was splicing, there was genetics, there were experiments. You can remember people doing this, and you mentioned that there was a focus on Egyptology, the Egyptian gods and goddesses. What can you tell us about that?
Okay. I only have a third of my memories and they're fragmented.
That's okay.
Um, I think it was Project Ibis. It could have been Mannequin. So I'm not sure, but excuse me. I went through a bunch of projects like Looking Glass, Seagate, but
Okay,
we'll
let's
get
just
to the
focus on
gates of
IBIS.
genetics.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're like me, you're ADD, so I'm doing my
Um,
best to try and keep you online, and I hope that's okay
I'm
to
sorry.
do. No, no,
Yeah.
darling, no sorries at all. We already planned what we were going to do, and I said I'll just keep jumping in because we just want to
Yeah.
break down so other people can understand what Project IBIS is, what Project
Okay.
Mannequin is, and then we'll come to the other two that you mentioned. So. What do you remember, if
Okay.
anything, of IBIS? Or maybe it was just a name you remember, and that's okay too.
The name, I remember being in a classroom like setting with the other kids, maybe about 20, 25, and the lab coats would teach us different languages, and different mathematics and things that you don't learn in private or public schools. But it was focused around um, the Egyptian deities like Osiris, excuse me, Thoth and Ra, and people get into the genetics side of it, and um, I, I remember them focusing sort of on Thoth, because apparently that's the Anunnaki DNA bloodline that they used in my creation and some of the other kids.
How old are the
Um,
kids, Holly? How old are the other kids and where are
Young.
they from? Where are they from? Are they all different colors? Like, fill in that detail for us.
And in this memory in the classroom type setting, I would say I was 5, 6, 7, about in around there, 8. Um, and they'd give us different type puzzles. I can't really even explain them, but it was focused on Egyptology and the ibis bird. And I know that's not really great, but so in that project, that's about how old I was. But I have other memories where we were about a year and a half, 2 years old in playpen. I was in playpens with other children. So throughout my life, I grew up in these projects. As far as where the other children were from, the UK, uh, a, a lot were from the UK, America, a couple from America. Um, the majority of the children were white that I remember. There was like one or two black or oriental, but the majority was white and the majority was from the UK with a couple Americans mixed in. However, I remember like in the human hunting parties when we were chained up in Buckingham Palace,
Oh my
I
God. Okay,
think
you did
there
a
was,
huge jump there, Holly. You just did a big
sorry,
jump. No, don't say sorry, please.
uh,
No, my
I'm
love, my
terrible at
love.
that.
No, it's okay. I do the same thing. But we're going to cover that. I promise you we're going to cover that. So
Okay.
okay. So where do you want to go next? So thank you. So you've laid out the classrooms for us. There were different projects at different times, different age groups, mostly white children. You heard a lot from the UK. And do you remember what military? Okay, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Were you at a military base when you were going through these classrooms and these trainings?
Out in the UK, I just don't know exactly where, but in the United Kingdom, uh, Nelson, Canada.
Okay. Right, Nelson, Canada. So I just did a drop with Karen Ann Lusick McDonald, who mentioned you, and our
She's
broadcast.
great.
She's great. God, what a
She
font
is.
of intelligence that woman has. Amazing.
Yes,
So it's Q552, which is the
yes,
Area 51 equivalent in Canada, in a place called Nelson, British Columbia. And you're saying to us that you remember being there with other children going through
yes.
programming, yes?
Yes, up in Nelson, Canada, my fibromyalgia pain feels just like the pain I felt when they would leave the hangar doors open and leave us kids sleeping outside, left to the elements.
Mm.
And we were kept under guard, under special forces, so nobody was getting to us. Even with the hangar doors open, nobody was getting to us. Um, I at that time. I want to say I was 4, 5, 6 years old. And one night, when they had left open the hangar doors, there were two rows of cots. I want to say about 20, 25 kids. It was the same kids there that were in that classroom, maybe a couple different ones, a couple different children, but I mean, the core group started getting smaller and smaller, but for the most part, it was the same children over and over again. Um, I remember looking across at the other row of cots and seeing a brown-haired, brown-eyed boy, and our eyes locked in on each other. And we were communicating, I think, telepathically, but I jumped up from my bed and I ran over to his and I slept next to him and we tried to cuddle together and keep warm during the night. But in the morning, I heard some shuffling of the special forces soldiers. So I jumped up from his bed and ran over to my cot. But when I got back in, oh my gosh, you could tell I didn't sleep in it. And like the pillows and the blankets were literally bored stiff. And I remember trying to lay down and pretend that I was in the bed and break the blanket to make it look like I was in the bed, but special forces yelled on your feet. And I remember jumping up and my bare feet hitting that cement or that concrete and it being so bitter cold. It just immediately, the pain just ran up your feet into your shins and it hurt so bad you couldn't even walk. Um, so there, um, I believe I remember them having different kinds of animals that they were programming us with, where they would, I think it was there, um, they would put us in playpens with, whether it be these big, huge snakes or they put us in these cages with monkeys, but the monkeys were programmed to, like, one would beat us, another one would eat your flesh, and I forget what the third one would do. So we were programmed with the animals. There was a lot of mutilation and sacrifice of the animals, and seeing them in the cages being experimented on as well, being in the cages next to them or inside the actual cage. They would put us in Skinner boxes with snakes and different insects and leave us, um, and eventually unbury us. But they had another type of Skinner box where I saw them put a box over this girl's head and they would put insects in it. And there were different like doors or windows they could open to like attack certain areas of the face, but still keep it locked up. That was horrific to watch, but I'm sure it was a lot more worse to go through it. Um, we all went through it though. In Nelson, Canada, another thing I remember, which it's very triggering. Um, I think there was some sort of lumberjack company up there, and like the chainsaws, that sound is very triggering. Um, and I think it was in Nelson, Canada too. They were transporting us children in a convoy on the surface of the earth. And as we were winding through the mountains, out of nowhere, an ambush, we were ambushed. And there was another faction of the government who started fighting with us because they wanted us kids. So I think it was Majestic 12 that set up this child rescue mission, but it wasn't very much of a rescue mission because some of the white lab coats were killing the children so they could not run away. I guess to them, it was better off that the children were dead than them losing the asset. I was sitting in the back of uh, like a Hummer type vehicle, and me and the children hopped out of the back. It was me and two other boys, and we tried to run off into the distance because we saw a shed, and we were trying to take cover and get away. Once we ran behind the shed, we realized that was no kind of cover whatsoever because the bullets were going right through it. So me and the two other boys, they were slightly ahead of me. We had to run out in front of the shed real quick to be able to get in back of it, just the way the layout of the land was. And as we got around to the corner of the shed and we were almost, free clear, um, the boy right in front of me, a bullet hit him in the back and blew a big hole in his back and he went down. And me and the other little boy, we just kept running and running. And my memory goes black from there. Um, but the next memory I have, with the same boy and the few children that did survive, we were just rolled over into other MK Ultra projects. So it had to do with two factions of the government fighting with each other over us.
Yeah,
But it wasn't a rescue mission, as in they were taking us home. We didn't
right.
get to go home.
Wow, I'm so sorry. It's so harrowing and awful hearing this and unbearable. Did you recognize any of the children in these projects?
Yes, some recognized me, others did not recognize me, but regardless, and for the other victims and survivors out there, regardless if people remember you or not, or you remember them or not, it doesn't matter. You still have to go through the healing process. So, whether you have somebody remembering you or not, you still have to give yourself time and love and the space to heal. Don't deny yourself that, and do not rely on somebody else confirming if you're there or not. You have to deal with this head on.
Very good point.
So,
Very good point. Because anybody who
yeah.
opens an awareness to such terrors and atrocities equally as awful as anything that was done in the Holocaust, which is where a lot of apparently Mengele created his disgusting experiments, that, as you say, everybody has to heal. No one's going to be mega famous from telling their story. No one's going to be the headline speaker at a conference. I know there's a pull and a drive for that, but it's really about the soul healing. Tell your stories, but make sure they're true. Make sure it's not a screen memory from something else. Everything you're sharing here is 1,000,000,000% what children of the satanic occult have gone through. The same programming, the same tortures, the same terrors. And I always say, when people wake up to the fact nothing is separate, secret space programs, satanic occult, military governments, music, science, education, everything, even people don't even realize what's happening in hospitals, what has happening in children's wards, how many deep, deep, deep basements there are. It's just such a minefield of horror that we have to pay attention to, but not get so emotionally involved as much as is humanly possible, because it's not easy hearing and seeing someone like you, my love. But I'm so grateful to you that you are coming out. And the other day, as you know, Miss Dani Henderson, dyslexic girl, I booked you and another new person to me at the same time. So there you both are, sitting at 2 o'clock on a spring day in England on my Zoom screen. I'm thinking, oh my God, how embarrassing. I've booked these two women at the same time. So, of course, you have to cop to it. So I'm like, hi, ladies, I'm so sorry. I booked you at the same time. And then something happened in my family where I actually couldn't make the whole broadcast. So we decided to hang out with each other. And it was you, Holly Baglio, me, and Sarah Keller, who's also new to me. And my God, watching the two of you, you've never met each other, and you were like boom, 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 sharing. Now, that's truth. You know it. People that are lying and making up stories, they're not firing off where they went, who they saw, what they know, what happened to them. And I just sat back going, okay, I feel confident that I've got two more people assets, unfortunately, which is what you'd be called an asset,
Okay.
to speak, to speak out. I've just to double back, and of course, no pressure, and you only name a name if you feel comfortable. But you mentioned that you did recognize some of the children, so it's a yes or no.
Yes.
Do you want to name any of them? And you don't have to.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I'm
No?
happy to name some.
Yeah.
I do remember Max Spears, but I never got to reach out to him while he was alive because I was too much of a coward. And I wrote him I had a letter typed up to him so many times, and all I had to do was press send, and I chickened out. I didn't know how he would receive me, and I hadn't reached out to another super soldier at that point. But after his death, everything changed. So I believe I remember David Marrow. I believe I remember Commander James Casbolt. Um, let's see. I'm drawing blanks. There's a few other people. Um, Aaron McCullum, Kieran Lee Perrin, uh, and there's a man whose name I'm thinking of, but he's deceased. I'm terrible with names, but those are some of the people that I remember. But as I don't know if you mentioned it here or backstage, but as far as, always knowing who's telling the truth and who's lying, is also very difficult because a lot of people want to say that they were trafficked and or they went through these MK Ultra projects, and no, they did not. They're actually dealing with maybe paranoid schizophrenia, but they don't want to be honest about that. They want to cover it up and say it's something else. Or they like the attention. So to say they went through these MK Ultra projects gets them attention and sympathy that they
Yeah.
would not have ordinarily. And I'll be honest, Danny, 9.5 times out of 10, I always bumped into the fakes, frauds, liars. There- There's there's a mother-daughter team out there that witnessed steal Kathy O'Brien's testimony as well as sections of mine and try to pass it off as their own. And that's so frustrating because I need that support. I need those prayers. I might need a friend. Friends. I might need family. And these people are getting all of that, stealing all of that, and now I don't have any resources to help me, and there they are running off to conferences. But I'll be honest, when you listen to somebody, that it's in what they say and how they say it that you can tell. I mean, once you're around survivors long enough, you can tell which ones are like, I'll give you an example. When somebody says, "Oh, Holly, I don't have any of my memories. They electroshocked me and wiped my memory bank." Okay, yeah, that's great, fine and dandy. So was my memory bank wiped. But if you even talk to a regular patient from a hospital that's gone through electroshock therapy, your memories eventually do come back. They may not come back the same, but they do come back. I mean, that's how I'm able to be here. I had a flash flood of memories, and the medicinal cannabis helped me break down all those MK Ultra walls, and it started to repair my mind. So I'm drawing a blank. I hate when that happens, when I
Okay, that
start
is a
drawing a
lot.
blank.
Thank you, darling. Thank
Uh,
you so much. No, it's great. And it's very difficult because it's such a horrific, it's the worst story. Children being tortured and programmed and having to watch other children be taken out and having to get, I mean, it's just the worst, unimaginable. Like, it's just so sad. So sad, and it's horrible to hear your story and that little girl and the like it's a lot, it's a lot, but we gotta tell the stories. We've got to bring it to the front stage. We gotta send love to everyone that's gone through it. We gotta tell them that we believe you. I believe you, and there's got to be more help, more healing. There's an English lady, Tina Bird. I had her on recently. She's lovely. She's been taking photographs for years of when she was taken by ETs. Again, it's all part of the same system, and able to prove and had medical x-rays done where they could see the implants in her. So she's got physical evidence. And she was saying that, she was taken on craft so many times that she was holding radiation energy in her field and her dog died from that. She's saying, where's the help for us? And she was, yeah, non-military. And she says that people in the military, they can get compensated. I mean, it's just a whole, again, a minefield. Bringing back to the point that you need support. There has to be a level of support. Um, there are people out there, I've heard their names, I don't speak their names, I will not speak their names, I'm told that were the programmers. They're still out there writing books and giving talks, and they're saying to other people, no, that kid's lying. No, I'm so and so. No, that's what I'm called in the Montauk project, for example.
yeah.
I don't know why I keep looking at my list there. That's crazy.
Oh,
Um,
well, you're right about that because what I think personally is that the programmers came out on the scene first and they behaved and carried themselves a certain way because they were programming their audience and grooming their audience so that when the actual victims came forward, like myself and Chris Latterer, that when we finally came forward, we were made to look crazy. And we're not, we were the actual victims, but the programmers came forward first and, oh, woe is me. I was victimized. I had nightmares as a child and had to have somebody hold my spouse hold my hand. You were the programmer, dude. You were the one waiting outside my school, waiting at the bus stop, or coming in my house to take me out or bring me back in. You were the programmer. So, like the audience too, it got frustrating at times for me because I'm watching the audience flock to Al Bielek and Preston Nichols for their science, but I don't personally think their science was worth the victims. And so, yeah, the programmers came on the scene first, but and they groomed the audience and set like a certain standard. So when us victims came forward, we were made to look crazy, emotional, mentally insane. But meanwhile, we went through all of those terrible things. And no offense, it's not like all of us are time traveling to work and using it daily. So I really don't think that I had to go through the Montauk Project for that. I remember begging Preston Nichols for my life. But then when he comes on the scene, oh, let's see what the audience, people in the public, let's see what he has to say. And meanwhile, he's the bad guy.
Okay.
So it's
Let
frustrating.
This is very, very important what you just said there. All right. So now we've left Q552. Is it Q552, QS552, the Area 51 in Nelson, okay, where you were kept in the cribs and the
Yeah.
doors and the super soldiers, the soldiers guarding you. I mean, I wonder how a lot of them are feeling. Like, honestly, I wonder how a lot of them think about what they did to children, what they were programmed, what they were commanded to do. Was it worth it? Do they have nightmares? Have they come out and spoken? Where's the backbone there? You mentioned Chris Lauterer. Chris Lauterer is a
Yeah.
French Canadian man. I have tried to help him. I have had him on my platform. I have brought him on with Laura Eisenhower and JP, trying to platform him in a way that others will see him, listen to him. I've tried to introduce him to others with way bigger platforms than me to try and help Chris because Chris is so passionate about being a little boy taken from Canada over the border to Montauk, New York, end of New York on an island where a lot of programming happened. And we know it's true, it's out there, it's in the world. They call it Camp Hero, all the way down in the basements. Apparently, there was a craft that crashed and a chair was removed from that craft and installed in Montauk. And they would put children in that chair and program them and torture them and have them open portals. And if anybody wants to go back on this channel and look up Chris Lauterer, you can look at his information because I think he is one person that needs helping along with some support of some real people out there who really care because he says that he is Cameron Duncan, right? One of the little boys. They were all given different names in the programs. That's what they do. And he said his name was Duncan Cameron. And someone out there says, no, I'm Duncan Cameron. Or someone says, no, I'm you, Duncan Cameron. So it eliminates. And I've said to him, darling, do you think that there were lots of other little boys called Duncan Cameron, in the programs? Because everyone's given, not everyone, but some of these kids are given different names. And he's like, no, Danny, no, that was me. So, bless him. So how did you meet Chris Lauterer and where were you when you met each other?
Oh, I I I met Chris outside of the projects. I'm sorry if I can't remember when I brought him up exactly what I said. I'm sorry if I said
It
something
was,
wrong.
no, you
I
didn't. No, see,
don't
that's your
remember
programming.
him
That's your
from the
programming.
projects, but I don't remember him from the projects. I met him, I think, a year or two ago, but I heard him about him from before that. But he went through these projects. Um, he, he went through these projects. I can tell by what he says, how he says it, and how he describes things. I find Chris to be sincere and genuine. I'm glad I got to meet Chris. I really like Chris. I was able to do a roundtable with Chris on Aquarius Rising Africa, and I really appreciated that because it was so interesting to see what he went through and the dynamics. And I was using his testimony to try to jog my memories too. So, Chris is a sincere, genuine, honest person. I stand in Chris's corner 100%. I do believe Chris 100% specifically. So,
Right.
um,
Chris
all right,
Lauterer.
sorry.
And no, and I too stand in Chris Lauterer's testimony because it is so clear that he has gone through so much and he has so much information and detail upon detail. So again, all right, now let's go. So we've gone to the Area 51 in Canada, Nelson, which is the QS552. I'm dyslexic, so the words get the wrong way around. And we have moved to Montauk. So you were at Montauk too yourself, you're saying?
Yes, I remember being there with the big Sage radar. I begged Preston Nichols one day. I was tied up in the van sitting next to him, and he was getting ready to put me in an experiment and um, direct his frequencies onto me. And I was terrified and I begged him for my life. And he just sat there in the van eating his sandwich and he says, I get off on science. And I mean, I begged him for my life. I said I would do anything. And he's like, no, I get off on science. And he just kept eating his food. Well, he liked little boys anyway. So, in Montauk, I remember them keeping, I have a memory of trying to escape Montauk, as a matter of fact. We were, us children, there was only a small bunch of us, I'd say about five, six, or seven of us. And we were in a room where the cages were three stacked high. And I think we only had a hole in the cage to look out of. It was horrible. Um, Anyway, me and the biggest boy, we tricked a white lab coat and we tricked him. I believe we hit him over the head, tied him up, and I think we put him in a cage, back into one of the cages. And I said to the larger little boy, I said, and I think the boy was David Marrow, but I'm not positive. And David Marrow did give me permission to mention his name. Um, I said, David, let's grab the other children. So the other children were small. They were like 2, 3, 5, 6 years old. They were small. I remember carrying one little girl out through the tunnels. We made our way through the tunnels and we had to climb up, like it was a ladder built into the cement walls, and we had to climb up. And I could not push the man cover off. So the larger little boy, David, he was super strong and taller and bigger than me. So he went up and he was able to push the cover off. And him and I got the children up the ladder and out. And once we hit the surface of the earth, I was not, I thought it would be dark, but it wasn't. It was daylight hours. And whatever drugs that they had us on, when we hit daylight, oh, we could not walk. We were falling all over the place. We got out towards the parking lot where the big Sage radar was to our left. And we were making our way to like the main street to get out, but there was a big fence. So once we got up to the fence, we were trying to scale it, but we were not doing very well. And a bunch of white lab coats ran out from the buildings. They ran out, grabbed us, and dragged us back inside. So it was, I never got to fully escape, but I tried and I tried to bring the kids with me.
Mm.
Um, but that was horrendous. They did the most horrendous things. It was not just the chair that was scary, where I didn't know if I was ever going to make it back home. I was terrified of the chair, and I mean, it looked more like a machine, and it and it responded to you. It's like you kind of melted to it. Um, but I was scared and terrified of it. But I remember waking up, and I believe it was in Montauk, and they had different tubes hanging out of my arms and my stomach. And I was on a gurney, and I looked across the room, and there was a lab coat sitting there. I think he's still alive, so I'm not going to mention his name, there was a lab coat sitting there, and he was writing something on a pad. And I tried to, say help. He wasn't going to help me. So I got up from the gurney and I saw people outside the door, and I tried to make my way to the door yelling, help, help. But the couple of people that were in the hallway, they just ignored me like I wasn't even there. So I think I just collapsed on the floor. But Montauk was terrible. Just
Bless you.
one
So
of the
you,
worst. Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned the chair. And so let's talk about what it exactly looked like to you and how it operated and what happened when you sat in it.
I wish I could give you all of those details. My memories are fragmented. Um, it it wasn't just like a dentist chair. It was more like a machine, and it responded to you, and you were directed. There was somebody that was on a speaker directing you to do things in the astral realm and to go places. And the machine, the chair is more like a machine. It responded to you. My memories are fragmented, so I I would not be able to draw you a picture of it either,
Mm.
but it was more of a machine, and
Yeah.
the thing terrified me.
That's okay. I'm so sorry. So sorry. I'm sorry to
Sorry.
ask. I know that you're here to
No, no,
share,
no, I'm
but
not. I'm happy to tell you about
well, we have to be gentle and respectful at the same time. We're not doing this for salaciousness. We're doing it to help you, support you, but to help others as well. So Chris Lauterer describes the chair that he was put on at Montauk as more like a deck chair, a sun lounger kind of thing, a long chair. But there also apparently there were two chairs. Apparently one was shorter and one was longer. So who knows? I've heard that from other people too. But I would say that Chris Lauterer, this thus far, is the strongest person I've spoken to with as much detail as well. I know there's a group of boys out there. They call themselves the Montauk Boys. I know there's no joy in that title whatsoever. They're simply saying we remember being in that project. I won't name
it.
them. That's not my role. I haven't met them all. And I'm trying to platform, as many people as I can, as I have done for years now with their testimonies. So, do you remember how old you
I
were?
could also be crossing my memories too, which that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like I know we started off talking about the secret space program, so if I'm getting my memories crossed or mixed up, I do apologize.
No, that's perfectly normal. It's so interesting. When I was 18, I was a nannying in London, and I watched a film, and it has disturbed me. It disturbed me greatly. And the film was called Sybil, and it was Sally Field playing the part of a woman who has so many different personalities because her mother was so unbelievably sick and cruel and tortured that little girl. So she created all these alters, alternate personalities, as we know they're called alters, in order to behave, in order to survive, not behave, survive. And it disturbed me so much. I couldn't bear it. One of those things you watch and you think, I hate the person that recommended I watched it because it's really disturbed me. And it's so
Yeah.
awful. But bless your heart, you have gone through so much and similar tortures that the only way we can cope as a human being is to decompartmentalize in order to deal with being alive because it's so painful touching those memories. It's so awful. So some people call it DID, dissociative identity disorder, schizophrenia, all kinds of different labels, and some of them are wrong. They are the wrong label. And as a therapist, also, I've dealt with a lot of people with different kinds of, situations where their alters come to the front, some go back, another one will come. They have no memory of things that they've been doing or they've been saying. It doesn't mean every single person has been through a space program, but they've clearly been through. But just to highlight, this is how you fracture a person, you fracture the mind of a child, and they will behave. Because at one point you believe you had over 160 different personalities living within the physical body of Holly, don't you?
Yeah. Joseph Mangley, he intentionally built in 169 altars, and I guess 169, the number means something in the occult world. I don't know about all that stuff. But yeah, it was to keep everything compartmentalized. And I'm sorry when I get things confused. Sometimes it's hard for me to flip from memory to memory. And I do apologize when I get mixed up.
You don't need
But
to, Holly. Honestly, my love,
okay.
don't apologize.
Um,
This broadcast is yours, darling. You do what you want, you say what you want. No one's judging you. And if they are, I'm a slapper bitch, okay? I got you. All right? You just keep on going.
I'll help you. I appreciate it. Um, so I had 169 altars. Um, a lot of them were younger altars. So it took me 8 years, but I focused all of my time of those 8 years into healing and trying to recover. Um, so I fully reintegrated. The altars are healed and gone now, so it's only me here. But if I get really stressed or something horrific happens, I'll still disassociate. But when I disassociate, there's no altars here to take over. It's just me. But what it is my mind is miles and millions of miles away. My thought process is derailed and I'm not present. I mean, I'm here, but my mind is a million miles away. So at least now it's just me here. There's no altars, but the healing process was pretty grueling with the altars. I thought it was never possible to heal from it. At first, I was really, truly embarrassed that I was DID. But then with time and with research and healing, it was my altars that were there to handle all of these atrocities. While I had left my body and checked out, it was my altar that was there to go through it for me. The only other option would have been to die. It was that bad. One of two things happens to a person during these trauma torture based mind control techniques. You either die or altars are created. You'll leave your body, and what's left over, Joseph Mangley would program, and that's the altar. And so every time he traumatized me, he was building another altar. Um, but I was at first embarrassed of my altars. But then when I realized, listen, they took all of this trauma and abuse for me. And it was my altars. It's always the altars that carry all the information of what happened to a person. It was my altars that came to me and told me their memories. Um, the altars always hold the information as to what happened. But I only met one third of my altars. I was decommissioned. Joseph Mangley released me in 2008. And for 3 weeks, I remember him programming me. So I want all of my memories back. And with time, with more time, I hope they definitely come back and return. But um,
So
what helped, sorry.
sorry, Mangala. I know you're calling him Mengele in England. We call him Mangala just so we align that we're
Thank
speaking about the same person. It's the same person, just with different ways of saying its name. People are going to say, "Don't be crazy. He's too old. There's no way he was alive in 2008." But that's not your experience, is it? He was alive. Did he look like a
you.
very old
Yes.
man? Was he drinking the blood of
No,
children to get younger? Okay, so and did he have another name in the project? Did you have to call him Doctor something?
I don't, I don't remember that, to be honest. Honestly, when my memories came back to me, I just remember calling him Joe the mechanic because anytime I had a problem, whether I was the problem or someone else was the problem, it didn't matter. He would fix my wagon and the problem was resolved. Um, but I just nicknamed him Joe the mechanic because
Mm. So
always
he,
working on somebody.
so he didn't make you call him Dr. Green or Dr. White or Nanny Black.
I can't remember, to be
Yeah,
honest with
yeah.
that,
So
with you.
and so he wasn't an old man to you. He was what age range would you say from a child?
Like in 2008, he kind of looked like he was in his mid 30s still. He
Okay.
didn't look like an old man. Kind of the same way Tom Cruise still looks really young.
Except right now he looks a little bit like something's gone wrong.
Oh, I guess an
Don't know whether you've seen him.
adrenochrome shipment didn't come in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, gosh, it's awful, isn't it? Such dark humor that the adrenochrome didn't come in. Oh my
Yeah,
word. Oh my word. Oh my gosh,
yeah, I don't mean to
Connie.
have a dark sense of humor, but
Well,
sometimes there's a way to
survive.
make
That's how
through.
you survive. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just unthinkable, these things. And so let me ask you a question. All the suffering, but children in boxes, coffins, buried alive, let out after whatever, full of insects and snakes and all the rest of it. What do you think was the point of that? What
to
was the point?
fracture my mind to create another altar.
For what?
Um,
Like, for what was the end game, do you think, for these monsters?
um, the end game is they want total control of the world, I think. They want it run a different way. But I mean, once all of the trauma and torture based mind control techniques, once all the altars were created, that's when Mangley and the other programmers would send me out on missions and assignments. And some of that was preparing me for dealing with these alien species. Because all through the deep underground military bases where I was trafficked, I remember these alien species being there and directly working with them. Even in the secret space program, I have a memory of us being on board of a ship and directly working with these entities.
What did they
So,
look
and
like?
that's maybe where I'm getting my chairs mixed up. So, again, I apologize.
That's okay.
Um,
If you say
I
I
cut you
apologize
off.
one more time, I'm going to tell you off.
I gotta stop doing that.
You gotta
Danny, I
stop
kid you
doing
not,
that.
lately,
You gotta
like even
stop.
around
I
the
know.
house, I've been trying to stop with the apologies
I
because
know.
it is annoying. It doesn't sound right. And
It just shows,
I'll
this
get
is
better.
a person who's been programmed to ask for permission to even be alive, beg for their lives. And so saying
Yes,
sorry is an element, a defense mechanism that might potentially keep you safe. But
yes,
really you're doing such a great service to humanity. So reframing that is what you're doing is so valuable. There should never be a single apology or sorry anyway. Are you kidding me? But I get it. It's habits, it's habits. And I'm pointing out kindly and lovingly, because it's good to do that.
you
We need
are.
to do that. Yeah, yeah. All right.
You
So
are.
aliens and ETs. So you're saying that you remember being on a ship. Do you remember what the ship looked like and how did you get on it? That's my first question.
No
Okay.
idea. My memory just cuts in, and
Okay.
there's a couple super soldiers
Why would you call them super
and these
soldiers?
entities on a ship.
Okay, why would you
Um,
call them
be
super soldiers?
because they were programmed, chipped, and surgically enhanced, just like me, and that's what they told us we were.
Okay. All right. So you're on a ship. What does the ship look like?
I just remember my memories are fragmented, so I just remember a quick glimpse of standing there with other super soldiers, but I
Okay.
know there were entities on board.
And do you remember what they look like?
Uh, there were little gray aliens, but there were tall grays. Um, and I don't really remember the rest. And to be honest, they terrified me. I was scared of them. And I would pass out. They were so frightening. But that was another reason for the altars because my altars handled that. So, um, yeah, in the secret space program, when they had us on the moon, I was in a hospital, and when I had regained consciousness and got up from my bed and walked out to the hallway to see what was going on, I witnessed different kinds of alien species walking down the hallway, and I immediately passed out from fright. And a nurse had to come and pick me up off the floor and bring me in the room. So, I mean, even a little gray alien, I don't mean to sound like a chicken, but I'm chicken. Like
Well,
they're frightening,
yeah.
they smell bad, they give off, they intentionally scare you and give off a feeling of fright and fear. So,
Mm.
um, I I've seen different kinds of alien species. And it would be hard for me to explain some, like the entities on Mars. The best I can explain it was it looked like a big, like I'm 5'6", so it was about my height. It looked like a big, overgrown, ugly bullfrog. And it might sound funny, but I don't even really know how to explain what it looked like. Um, I've been in front of other Elohim, I think from Sirius B, and they looked different. They looked like they were transparent, but with but they were still shiny like a pearl. Um, so there's different kind of species, and I don't know.
Okay, so let's go
My
back to the,
altars dealt with it.
yeah, no. Let's go back to the bullfrog on Mars. Do you remember how you got to Mars? And how did you know it was Mars?
Um, my memory, it's fragmented, but my memory cuts in where I'm sitting on a rock in front of water, and the entity's sitting next to me. And he asked me, or it asked me, do you want to stay here or do you want to go home? And I remember answering. So the overall general feeling was that I had been there for a while. That's how I was feeling in the memory. And I said to him, I said, I want to go home. I miss Grandma and Papa. And he said, okay, go back inside and say goodbye to the other kids. So, uh, whether it was one of their aircraft that, because they have certain aircraft that can travel interdimensionally, or a jump room, that's how I would have gotten to and from Mars, would have either been a jump room or an aircraft. Um,
Do you remember what the
for
jump
some,
room experience was like?
um, yeah, I have, I think, two memories. You would just go in, sit down, and then they would have a countdown. Like in, I'll tell you the one memory I have. I sorry, like everything's kind of bottlenecking. Um, I believe we were already out on another planet, and we were going from Saturn to one of its moons. So we had gotten into a jump room, me and the other soldiers, and we had on typical fatigues, and I think we had headgear on, like with a visor, like a helmet, and we sat down in the chairs, and there was a countdown, and I think they told us to close our eyes, because if the light would blind us. Um, and there was a countdown. And as we're sitting there and we're supposed to keep our eyes closed, there was a younger girl next to me, and she opened her eyes during the process. And I just remember her blood-curdling scream, and she fell on the floor and started flailing all around. And me and the other soldier next to her, we tried to grab a hold of her and comfort her, but she was screaming that her eyes were burned and she went blind. And from that point on, I never saw her again in the projects. So that was one jump room experience. another jump room. I remember sitting there and I had my eyes closed, but I guess I kept them closed too long, and the team leader started making fun of me for it because I was scared. I didn't want to go blind. I was scared to be in this jump room to begin with, and I just wanted to go home.
Mm,
So I had a lot of fear.
bless you. When you were on Mars and you saw the bullfrog being, were you
Mhm.
outside in the air
Yes,
in the regular atmosphere? Were you wearing any kind of apparatus, or were you just normally able to breathe?
we were normally able to breathe. I
Thank
don't
you.
remember bouncing on the moon.
You don't remember
Like,
what?
I said, like, I don't remember bouncing on the moon. Like, meaning, like, we could
Right.
breathe we could breathe normally. There was still an atmosphere for us to breathe.
Okay.
So,
So on Mars, obviously we've got the testimony of like Tony Rodriguez in particular, who remembers being on Mars and being in an atmosphere at one point when him and his colleagues were used as bait soldiers for the cowardly military to use soldiers and throw them out there with very minimal breathing apparatus to see whether or not the local indigenous ETs, aliens, beings would eat them alive, kill them, attack them, which did happen. And there were other times where he was outside, like you were able to breathe air. Also, NASA, who nobody cares about and listens to because they've lied our whole lives and hide and use
yes,
cloaking technology, there are photographs of Mars with bright blue skies, obviously confirming an atmosphere. And it's sad because there are people that get so attached to the science and the mathematics of everything. They decide that this light year equates to this, therefore, biologically, anti-gravity wise, it's impossible for this to happen because that's what we've been trained in the lower vibrations of the controllers that have controlled our planet. Whereas we can get to the moon in seconds, in Mars in seconds, depending on jump rooms or other apparatus. We can get on an American military craft or a British military craft, anti-gravity craft, and be in on the moon in 10 minutes. And people go, oh, and that's when they go, oh, cuckoo, cuckoo to people like us. But
yeah,
they're the ones. It's like, oh, mate, oh, bless you. It's all right. You'll be all right. You'll catch up at some point. Just we ain't got time for you now. We ain't got time for you now. I'm
right.
not waiting any longer. I don't care. I'm like, if you haven't woken up at this stage, then you may not. You may not. And that's okay. We
Yeah.
just keep marching forward. Now you mentioned Sirius B. And you mentioned the Elohim. Now, let's just do a couple of things here for people because we've got to understand as well, because every single system on the planet is one big beast system, it's one big thing. Everything is connected military, governments, satanic occults, child trafficking, adrenochrome, everything is together. So we're growing up, let's say that you and I are raised as Christians, right? Then we're told all the angels, Michael, Jophiel, Haniel, Gabriel, Raziel, Raguel, EL on the end. I was told the EL means closer to God. There are others that have a different kind of discussion on that. But the L, some say it equates to the Elohim. Some say the Elohim are actually the Nephilim, the fallen angels. We go round and round with these bullshit Genesis stories. One's in the Bible, one's over here, and one's over here. And oh my gosh, spin, 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 which is, of course, the plan. Tell them any kind of bullshit, raise them on it. They'll be schooled in it, then they'll repeat it their whole lives. And that's what we do, unfortunately. But let's talk about you and your actual experience on Sirius B with the Elohim, my love. What are the Elohim to you? What happened?
I just meant Elohim as they're another alien species, and I really don't know how to describe them, so I'm doing the best I can.
Hmm.
Um, it- Whether they're good or bad or wherever they come from, I don't. I mean, you got to test everything. I don't know, but just to explain them, it was another alien species, and my memories are fragmented. I remember being there with them and working on, for lack of better terms, like advanced computer equipment, and it had to do with weaponry. And I remember sitting at this computer board. It's just a quick glimpse. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, this is one of the easier projects and missions I've had to do. This is one of the easiest ones. This is okay. I'm gonna get home okay. My time here, I'm gonna be able to deal with it. This was one, I just remember that feeling that it was an easier project. And before I left, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I made the aliens on Sirius B or Elohim. They just look so beautiful. Like they were just so beautiful and unlike the other ones that I had seen. And maybe that's why I want to give them such a nice name because they looked beautiful. I did not feel threatened and I got home safely. There was no danger. They were nice to me. They were nice to me. So I made them a gift before I left and I asked them, don't forget me. I won't forget you. But of course, I mean, I did. I had altars. I remembered eventually, and that was one of the more better experiences that I had.
Mm,
So they're real, you know.
mm-mm.
You have nice ones and you have bad ones. But so
That's
that was the
beautiful.
extent of Sirius B, what I can try to remember of that.
Yeah, and do you remember where you were when you met them? Were you inside a building? Were you outside on the surface? You remember what it looked like, what the atmosphere was like?
I was up there with them. I was up there with them. And I just remember sitting at this advanced computer equipment and then interacting with them. Well, like they would come in and interact and then leave, and I was just sitting there working. Um, but sorry, I'm not more.
No,
I
that's
reviewed my
fine.
program.
Yeah,
I wish
we're
I
not
remembered
sorry.
more.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
not
Well, it's
sorry.
but this is great.
Yeah.
We're just whatever you do have, you're delivering, and it's beautiful and it's perfect and it's right because each subject is so huge, but it just piques the interest and the thought, and maybe some memories of others out there too that are putting pieces together because that's what we do. You mentioned that in one of the memories where you remember wearing regular army fatigues. What color were they?
Dark, dark blue.
Okay. You said that
In
you
that
were,
memory, sorry,
no,
in
no.
that memory, it was dark, dark blue.
Okay. You mentioned also that another experience, knowing you're on a craft, knowing there are two other super soldiers. I said, how do you know they were super soldiers? You said because they were upgraded and enhanced like you were. What color were their uniforms? Do you remember anything about them? Any symbols, any signia on there at all?
They were just in plain fatigues. It was just a darker color. I think in that memory it was just like a yucky, pale, greenish gray color. I don't remember like patches what they looked like. The only
Hmm.
time I remember a patch was James Rink and boarding his ship. And the only reason why I even remember that patch and can recall it was because I was cracking a joke with James. He was always such a nice person. But when we were boarding his ship, I was cracking a joke saying, we have a two-star pilot. What happened to four stars? We're the government. Where's the other two stars? And I was just teasing and joking, trying to
Oh
get
my
him to laugh.
gosh.
The other super soldiers didn't think it was very funny. But I honestly was just joking around. But that I remember the patch, but the other times I just it's a fragment. I'm still hoping for the details to
Yeah.
become clearer.
You're doing amazing, Holly. Amazing. You mentioned James Rink. He was a former, sadly, we lost him recently over recent months. He passed away. He had a great YouTube channel called Super Soldier Talk. He
Yeah.
believed that he had been cloned many times, was used in many different programs. He did his very best. We're all human. He did his very best to recover. He had such acute anxiety. I remember the first time I interviewed him years ago, I was living in Costa Rica, and I couldn't bring myself to put broadcast out because, well, I did have two handlers at the time, actually, two women. One was always saying, this person's a grey or reptilian, and the other one was like, no, that my alien friends are telling me this person's wrong. So I didn't realize I had handlers until recently. I'm not sure they're aware. I'm actually not sure that these two women, we'll call them little and large, even are aware. But regardless, he was shaking so much, and I felt like I feel like I was abusing him, and like putting that video out was just it just felt wrong, you know. Anyway, I met him after that, and we had talked about things, and a lot of us we clashed, and we did clash a few times, and that's all right. It's all part of the journey, finding each other, remembering. A lot of us have kind of come like this and gone like this. And most of us are
Yeah.
now coming back together, which is very beautiful. The last time I saw James Rink, or James Ring as he was also known, he presented me with a beautiful bunch of yellow roses. And he said to me, Danny, we all need to come together. We must come together. Love wins, and he's so
Yeah.
right. And God love you, James. So you are saying that you physically knew him in the program. This is very important when we bring another person with memories alongside us. So take your time and tell us, what was that experience like? What are your memories with James Rink?
It's just the one that I told you about, but I do remember seeing him through these projects. So that's pretty much it. I did tell James Rink what I remember, but I just remember seeing him through the projects, like with the other kids,
So, so you're saying
sporadically.
you remember him as a little boy and then seeing him older? Is that what you're saying?
Um, I think I saw him once when I was younger, but I remember him specifically as the two-star pilot.
So
So
would
he
he
was a
been
part of them.
okay? All right.
Sorry.
No, was he, did you see him? Well, I don't want to put words or suggest anything. Where do you believe you also saw him? What project or what place did you see him as a younger person?
I cannot pinpoint a specific place or project. I was born into these projects, so I
Yeah.
went through them all. They run together. Um,
Yeah, and that's also the
yeah.
plan as well. They do their best so that you kids don't, you young assets don't actually remember each other or make it as muddled as possible. So it's not surprising that you don't have clear recall at all for that. But how lovely that you did have that singular emotion or giggle. You see, the thing is, if they keep you in fear, that's it. That's where the focus is because you're running on survival. Your adrenaline's popping and your whole body is on emergency alert. But when you have a moment of joy or humor, then something locks in. It's like that's how Kathy O'Brien, raised by satanics, tortured through the White House and the Pentagon during the George Bush W administration in the 80s is specifically, who did things that were done to you and worse and awful and the same and just Jesus, and she only started getting her memory when her husband, who became her husband, Captain Mark Phillips, not Captain Mark Phillips, Mark Phillips, rescued her and her little girl Kelly because he knew that George Bush, the dead one, the old pedo, was doing what no man should ever do to any little girl. And yes, he was doing that. And so he rescued Kathy and her child. And then she started to fall in love with him. And as she started to melt into emotions that she'd never known, love, kindness, not since she was a baby. Her dad was too busy putting his thing in her mouth as a newborn. Revolting dog ends. And anyway, it was the love emotions, the love emotions that started awakening her to have full memory. And then you look at our friend Tony Rodriguez. Tony Rodriguez, when he was taken in a program to a place called Ceres, Ceres, a planetoid star system, he fell in love with someone that he would go visit as he was allowed out of the prison environment he was in. And he fell in love and he remembers. So he got memory because his feelings were changing, emotions were changing. And he even tracked that girl down here on the surface in this timeline some time ago. I don't know whether you know that story. He's spoken about it several times. So clearly, a moment of fun, of joy, of, that does help children, now adults, recall, their memories. That's just something lovely for, anyone to consider. Let's take a step back. Are you doing okay? Do you want to keep going a little bit longer?
Yes.
You're all right.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, we can go a little bit longer. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's still one more thing I want to say about the genetics and
Oh,
stargates.
yes, go ahead. Just drop it. Drop it
Okay,
all.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, from my understanding, certain genetics open up these stargates. Like these stargates and sea gates operate on their own. Human beings do not control them. And I think that's why we created CERN is so we could control our own. But for these stargates and sea gates, I believe that certain genetics can open them. And that was another reason for these projects. Even I hope you don't mind me saying, but Missing 411 with David Paulides, he said the common denominators with the missing 411 people and with people having these experiences um, are being German and having some sort of disability, or what could be construed as a disability or weakness. So I think the genetics have a lot to do with it. For example, in my 20s, I went out to Las Vegas with one of my bosses from AT&T, and we visited the Grand Canyon. And while I was there, it was the most awesome experience. We took a helicopter ride through the Grand Canyon, and it was awesome. I got to sit in the front seat, and when I looked down between my feet, I could see the bottom of the Grand Canyon. It was the most beautiful thing, but it was also the strangest thing because as the helicopter entered into the Grand Canyon, I got this overwhelming feeling and sensation. And um, it felt like I was being called out to. It felt like um, the canyon was saying, "Where have you been? Welcome back home. This is where you're supposed to be." And I cried through the whole experience. Besides the Grand Canyon being so beautiful, it felt like I was being beckoned back home, like I belong there. I'm connected some way. So.
That
And
is,
that's not the only time. I've gone to another ancient alien architecture structure or whatever. It's called Earthworks up in Newark, Ohio, and it's called the Great Circle. And supposedly the entity Whirlwind was summoned down, and when Whirlwind came down, it made like this perfect circle. But when you go to the Great Circle, um, you can enter into like the mouth of the circle. There's an opening, but it's a perfect circle in the ground, and the ground like drops down like 15 or 20 feet, and then it goes up real high, about 15, 20 feet. It's a mound, and it's a perfect circle. And inside the mound, there's even more mounds, smaller hills. But when I went there with a group of people from a conference, most of the people felt grim and gloomy. They wanted to vomit. There was human sacrifice done there, and they felt horrible. They felt eerie and spooked out. They really didn't want to be there. But meanwhile, when I got there, I felt great. I felt young, vibrant, healthy. I felt like I didn't have asthma. My energy came back. I felt awesome when I was inside that circle walking around those grounds. I felt the completely opposite of everybody. And that's when it kind of dawned on me there's got to be something with my genetics and DNA, what they did to me in the dumbs. Um, Whatever it was, it's just very strange. So,
thank you for that. You mentioned sea gates, and
yeah,
stargates.
I'm from Project Seagate. So we walked through the actual gate. So, and that might be where I'm getting my chairs mixed up too. So, but we walked through the actual gate.
How?
In my
How?
memory,
Where is it? Where is it?
okay, I'm not quite sure. I tried to figure out where we were, and we may have been over by Yemen in the Gulf of Aden. Over there is a military base. It's um underneath the water on the seafloor, and there's a gate. It's a sea gate. So there's a deep underground military base over in that area, and it's because there's a gate there. Um, it a looks like a big door with water falling over it. For lack of better terms, like that movie in the 1980s called Seagate, it's kind of similar to that. But it looks like there's water falling over it. Um, and I was brought into this project. I think I was in my late teenage years, early 20s. And when I was brought into this project, when you go into the room, there were two rows of seats where we were to sit. Um, to my left was a couple of big, large tables, and they had computers all around. And then in front of those tables was a big gate. And um, I remember on one mission in particular, me and the other soldiers, we sat in the chairs and we used our silver cord. We left our bodies and walked through the gate. And on the other side, we could physically manipulate things on the other side. I remember having a tool belt and working on something. I like hid a tool or buried a tool next to the gate, and the other soldiers were doing whatever it was that they were supposed to do. But even though we were using our silver cord to go through the gate, it we were still able to manipulate matter. And I'm not positive if we had an avatar on the other side or not. I'm kind of thinking we did. Um, but then I remember when we were finished doing what we were supposed to, we came walking back through the gate. And when I was walking back through the gate, I could see into the dome and I could see my body sitting on the chair. Um, like I could see back in. So I walked through the gate, rejoined my body, as well as the other soldiers. So, but our bodies were kept safely in the dumbs while we were on the other side of the gate. For lack of better terms, like that movie Avatar in the beginning, where his body's safely in this chair and then, but yet he's using an avatar on the other side.
You mentioned that you went through with your silver cord, which is the cord that keeps the
Yeah.
soul or the astral body. Well, we're not really, we're told so many different things, but that's what you were able to enter through and then re-find your physical body after. Do you remember the other preparation for that, the protocol before you could actually use your body and go through the gate?
Uh, Not really. I have a fragmented memory where the team leader was walking me through it, showing me how it's done. Um, I remember walking through the gate by myself. Him and I were sitting in the chairs. It was just him and I. And my memory comes in where my memory comes in where I'm on the other side of the gate looking into the dumbs, and I'm watching the team leader hold, like, he's next to the chair, kind of like holding me up and very close to me. And I walked through the gate, rejoined my body, and when I came to, he had moved his hands a weird way, and he said, Holly, that's how it's done. But I can't remember the details. Um, I mean, after that, that was actually kind of a good memory. Um, I guess I was romantically involved with the team leader and really liked him. At that point, he kissed me. And of course, in walks a white lab coats, and the white lab coats started screaming, "What are you two doing in here? Ah!" Um, but it was really interesting because that team leader left such an impression on me that his name, for some reason, I remembered his name my whole life. And when I was around 35, 36 years old in my normal life, I was dating a guy, sadly, that was extremely abusive, and he was beating me up, beating the daylights out of me every 2 weeks. And I had a real tough time getting rid of him. I started wearing knives for self-protection, and I wore one knife on the outside of my pants, visible for people to see, but then I had a second knife, and it was hidden somewhere else on my person. And I named my knives. The one on the outside that people could see, I named it Moses from the Bible. And at the time, I didn't really know a lot of Bible stories, but I mean, Moses parted the Red Sea and walked through it. That's pretty incredible. So I named the one knife Moses, and then the other knife I named Aaron, but not Aaron, Moses' brother. No, I named it Aaron after the super soldier in the Dums. I knew two Aarons. I knew a girl and a guy. The girl was Erin, and the male was Aaron, I think, or Aron. Anyway, but it was Aaron. So, and because I remembered this blonde-haired girl, Aaron, and this brown-haired, brown-eyed man named Aaron, when it came to naming my knives, I named that second one Aaron. And I didn't really necessarily believe in past lives, but this brown-haired, brown-eyed man named Aaron stuck in my head. So I named my knife after that. Well, when I woke up, I was 39, 40 years old, and I used medicinal cannabis to come off my prescriptions, fire all my doctors, and start living a more natural way of life. When the when the memories came back, I started to try to look for these other kids that I was trafficked with online, but I was looking up a lot of other stuff too. And I started bumping into like Max Spears running videos, James Casbolt, whole bunch of people. And I came across videos about Project Seagate. And when I clicked on Project Seagate and I saw the man speaking, he had brown hair, brown eyes, and the same exact name that I named my knife. And that's pretty much when my world fell to pieces because that's when I knew it was not in my mind. It was, well, it felt like a past life because it happened so long ago and in a different time period, but my world fell apart because it meant that these memories were actual memories. It was not an imagination or a nightmare. I had to literally do something about it. So I never met the Aaron that I named my knife after. You know, we all have different lives. We all move on. Some of us are living off grid and married, and I do not want to upset anybody's life and or insult anybody in any capacity. Um, but anyway, yeah, so
Amazing.
I did have a romantic
Mm.
love
Ah,
during the dumps.
some little light in that horror.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of things to bring up here. One of them is about the Grand Canyon, which I'm going to come back to. 'Cause it's very important for people to know something about that place. And because you were in, oh, I'll do it now. Project Ibis, linked to Egypt, Egyptology, the gods, the goddesses, the ancient, technology there. It is known, well known now, and those that don't know it, you're going to love this. It is proven that parts of the Grand Canyon that the military have taken over that won't allow humans to go down are populated heavily with ancient Egyptian temples that are named after ancient gods and goddesses. There is so much in the Grand Canyon hidden there. Military personnel such as JP, also known as Jorge Pabon. Now, his name is out. He speaks at every conference I ever do. He's a whistleblower with the American military. He's given permission to speak on some of these subjects. One of his missions was into the Grand Canyon, into an opening, seeing just a whole wall of ET mummified giants, slabs of gold. I mean, the things that have been kept from us. Is that some asshole wanker billionaires like treasure room? Is it? Because that's what these pigs have done at the top. So that's there. So that might be again why you felt such an emotional cellular memory, energetic awakening flying in that machine, feeling the Grand Canyon below you, because you are linked to an Egyptian project. There could be something there. The other thing I wanted to say that you mentioned the brown eyes and the brown hair. Max Spears also talked about that, and so did James Casbolt. And I believe it was in one particular video that I remember watching, and it was not Kathy O'Brien, it was Kerry Cassidy, who has been a journalist and filmmaker for decades, one of the first women, one of the bravest people to come out 20, 30 years ago and start talking about the unspeakable, the secret space programs, the ETs. And she's sitting in a room with Max Spears and James Casbolt, and I think it was James Rink filming. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was. People can go check that for themselves. And these boys, these men, now we know Max Spears is dead, and James Casbolt, also known as Michael Prince in the project, still alive, and recently out of prison, and his hair's completely white. Bless his heart, bless him. Um, Now they are brown-haired, brown-eyed boys. There is a thinking that there was a whole marketing, genetic splicing to create children that all look very similar from the same bloodline. Some said it was the Rothschilds, not the Rockefellers, but hey, what is your knowledge on that?
Um, I think I think some of the kids I was with, they had different bloodlines, but my understanding was it was Rothschild, but in these projects, I thought it was like the DNA from Thoth or one of these other Egyptian gods. Um, so there were a couple of kids from different bloodlines that I was in these projects with, but they all had Anunnaki DNA. We were all being programmed the same, whether it was Rockefeller or Rothschild. It we were all these we were all created humans being surgically enhanced and chipped and broken down and trained. So, yeah, sorry.
Interesting. We
Excuse me.
know that Hitler, we know that there was the Aryan nation, the blue-eyed boys and girls with the white blonde hair, the particular kind of Pleiadian Nordic look was, in their opinion at that time, apparently like the pure, which is obviously dreadful and so cruel and not true at all. But these were deemed the white, blue-eyed, blonde people were the most beautiful on the planet, and that's what Hitler was being funded to create. We know we've come to understand he was a front man. He was, I believe, was it a Rockefeller? His mum had an affair with one of them, and then she became pregnant. So then they knew that and tracked him and used him because the bloodline families rule. Like Bill Gates, another serial monster. He's a Rockefeller. You can trace the bloodline. Every single prime minister, president on the planet, without exception, bloodline family. It's just so bloody boring. A-lister musicians, A-lister celebs, long-term ones. So many of them, again, same bloodline, positioned, for us to adore, adulate, and kick our programming in. We're all triggered. There's so many different things. And one thing I've got to clear up, I did a little experiment on Facebook 2 days ago. And I said, and I just did it for Britain just to see what would happen because I'm living in Britain right now in England. And I said, who of you remembers having separate tests at school from 1975 to 2000? And I made it very clear, my question was very clear. Does anyone remember taking these tests alone? Because unfortunately, there's people who don't have all their memories back. There are people who are adopting other people's memories. And the fact is, and what I discovered with all of the many replies I got, that testing for here, I, showing cards, being put in a dark room, listening to the beep, 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 beep with the headphones on, that's not secret space program. That was standardized testing. Yes, they were looking for some of the smartest children in the school. We had something called the CAT test when we were 11 or 12 years old. I sat next to Pamela Hastings. I could see that she was getting it wrong. So I copied the ones of her that I didn't know and then did my own when I could see she was doing it wrong. I was so lazy. Anyway, I got called because I scored one of the highest and then they knew I cheated. So then they put me in a room by myself to retake the test and I scored higher. I scored higher. And my name got read
Ooh.
out in school, but because I was such a naughty girl, so distracted, ADD, really crying out for some help and attention that adults failed to pick up on. We lived in this haunted house. It was very distressing living with all these bloody spooks and demonics and beings. And anyway, it's very traumatizing. But I remember when they read my name out with four other very clever boys, I was like, oh my gosh. Then the whole school, the whole year was there, and they're all yelling, cheat, 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 cheat at me. So that was so awful, awful. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. I digress slightly. So for those that remember being tested, it isn't just because you were in a secret space program. And I think we just have to dial some of these traumas that a lot of us are holding back, and not attach it to Holly Baglio, for example. This is something that you yourself know happened. You've recognized others. You're figuring it out. You're very bravely sharing. But there was standardized testing through schools. I've heard from Australia, New Zealand, America, and England so far. And a lot of people remember these tests. So, do you remember being tested in school yourself?
Actually, I do. I remember them pulling me out of class and like running tests and doing different puzzles and using those cards and the pink juice. But I also remember the teachers pulling me out of class and bringing me into a different classroom with other children doing more focused studies because they said I had learning disabilities and I was ADD. So I was brought into another classroom that had three teachers and five students. And when they were done with the studies, I'd be brought back. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember all sorts of tests, even in high school, the different tests that they would make you do, and the ones that would figure out your personality or figure out what you would be good at doing. If you go off to college, what would you like to do? The test asked you questions, so the test would figure out what kind of industries or fields you'd be good at. But yeah, I remember a bunch of testing. But in school, I always thought because I was a slow learner, they tested on me more. But I also saw them taking students out because there were students who were more advanced and smarter than the rest. So,
Mm.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just a good point to bring up, while people are wondering, was I in the secret space program? No, you probably weren't. We've just got to settle down because we're at the peak of memories. We're at the peak of full disclosure, and we don't need people coming in, muddying up, taking people out, putting disinfo, which you and I talked about off camera. We know
Yeah.
that's happening, and I am not being disrespectful. I have platformed many different people over these years, who have genuine memories. And bless you all for whatever you've gone through out there. But it's so important that we anchor it down, we lock it down, we find the people who really are fully aware of their experiences. Like I've platformed Tony Rodriguez so many times, bless him. He's speaking at my next conference. JP, of course, who's currently active. Chris O'Connor, who's got the greatest information I've heard so far on Saturn. I did Drago Reed for the first time the other day. James Rink, bless him, but never did get to post it on my channel. I think I'm forget. Oh, Jean-Charles Moyan has very significant memories of his time in different space programs, and he's created many different films to highlight his exceptional memories. I'm just, gosh, just so many people. I'm sorry if I've forgotten anyone out there. I have, but Gene Decode, I just looking at my list of people I've got who he'll be coming back. Gene Decode is extremely important and interesting. No one ever sees him, not even Michael Saller. Like Christiane Northrup's met him though. She said that he can do push-ups on one hand. He's extraordinarily clever. He's a sensei, as in a, martial artist at a very high level, and he brings such incredible information. In fact, he got some of the information I platformed here about the UK DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, of which there are countless in the UK. And he got a lot of that information from James Casbolt. He actually honors, he does the right thing, Gene. When someone gives him information, he doesn't take it and run it as his own. He thinks about putting the person's name, putting the energy frequency where it needs to be, which is balanced and honest and fair. And it doesn't trigger, other frequencies in the field where people are getting pissy because their hard-earned information is just being, copycatted by others, which is so out of order. We have covered so many different areas at this stage together. Um, you are amazing, so brave, beautiful, strong, brilliant, powerful. I'm so grateful to you for you reached out, but I was already going to reach out to you because I saw you on Sean Atwood and I went, oh, that one there. I feel her. I feel her. So is there anything else you'd like to leave us with today that maybe we haven't covered in particular?
Um, Maybe real quick, if you are DID with alters, don't be embarrassed of them. Embrace them. Treat them like they are your best friends. Make sure you feed them, give them water, and get them things that they need. Get their memories. Treat them like they're your friends because they took abuse for you. And do not be embarrassed of yourself if you have alters. That means you did not die. It's survival of the fittest and you survived. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You're not weak because you have alters. On the contrary, so treat them like they are your friends because you are your alters are you, and take care of them because full reintegration is absolutely obtainable and it's not that difficult. But care about yourself, take care of yourself, give yourself time to heal, and make sure you eat, sleep, and take your vitamins. Definitely take care of yourself, but please don't be embarrassed if you do have alters.
Very good advice. I mean, such important advice. And bless you for saying that, having compassion for your other brothers and sisters who've also, gone through this. And it's all about, yeah, bringing those tools for everyone to help themselves. But no one is worth, it's like earlier, you weren't feeling 100% well, if you don't mind me sharing. And so I said, well, make sure you're okay because nothing is worth our health. Nothing. We're
Yeah.
not here to sacrifice, beat ourselves up. Those of you that have been through these horrendous programs, you deserve it to yourself to put your health first. And we don't want anyone being a hero or a victim or a martyr because that's boring and a turn off and it will stop us believing people. So we want to see strong people in recovery who can own it, but also taking care of themselves, like you just said, and like I know you are. It's important, right? Especially in April. No, it's the 1st of May, 1st of May,
Oh,
2026.
wow.
Yes, Beltane. Happy
That's
Beltane.
awesome.
Happy spring. Spring is springing. Spring is springing, everybody. Yes, and the sun is shining in Britain, which is glorious, glorious, glorious. Well, my love, give us your kind of final thoughts on, I guess, anything that comes to mind. And more importantly, if you're taking people, if you're talking to them, if you're allowing them to connect with you, if you're open to that. I know you're still in recovery. So whatever you want to
Yes.
share and leave with the people who'll see this.
Well, you can reach me, and I just like to say I'm sorry I'm slow to respond to people, but I will respond to everybody. Just please be patient with me. But I wrote my autobiography, and I have um over 20 drawings of my memories of what the cages were like. But I have a website and it's my name, hollybaglio.com. And if you click on Kids in a Cage, you can read my autobiography. It's there, it's up for free to read. There was somebody who was posing as a publisher. I was trolled, and somebody recently made me think I had a publisher, and I'm suspect in thinking that they not only stole my work, but they might be trying to sell my book behind my back.
Evil.
And I'm not here for money. I'm here to come back for the kids in the cages, and I'm here for Yahusha. So I'm not here for the money. I mean, it would be helpful. I need it, but I'm really worried about my life's work. But if you would like to read my autobiography and look at all my drawings and see my interviews and get to know more about me, but also send me an email, just go to hollybaglio.com and everything will be right there. And again, I will get back to you, and I'm sorry to those people I haven't gotten back to yet, but I will. And thank you so much for taking your precious time to hang out with me. And Dani, I think you're awesome. And thank you so much for welcoming on your channel. And thank you to your audience as well.
Oh my goodness, Holly, so much love to you, so much love and healing, you beautiful soul. Thank you so much. You're just
Thank you.
incredible and so brave. And to see the way that you're managing all of those former altars, it's very, very inspiring. And it just tells us again, as a human that's been through so much, like what is actually possible, in healing. And yeah. Really proud of you,
Yeah.
really, really proud of you and others, who are going through this because it's not easy, for anyone, but you're just you're going to be inspiring, for others. So and thank you all for watching. Please be kind to Holly. Don't steal her work. Please support her and give her the love and the courage, encouragement that she needs. And again, my name is Dani Henderson, sending so much love to all of you from my heart to yours. And I'll see you soon. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Dani.